Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. It's show number 342. It's Wednesday, the 14th of June. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and this is my twice weekly webcast. It's the Wednesday's version, of course. Clive's looked in. Good to see you. Right, what have we got for you today? Well, fairly packed show again. Strikes will be hitting motorcycle tests and, of course, all other tests run by the DVLA. A teen has been arrested in connection with a hit-and-run crash which happened last month in Kent, which left a baby seriously injured. A veteran Hollywood actor has been killed in a motorcycle crash in the USA. I'll tell you about a new bike air transport service which launched just this week. We'll have a look at the detachable bike airbag which has been patented by Honda. Triumph has some summer offers you may be interested in, but Oxford's new jackets disappoint with their CE Level A rating. And finally, in today's discussion point, we'll be looking at the troubled history of MV, who've gone from GP champions to €1 sell-offs. So, okay, stay tuned as we run into that list of actions. Now, don't forget, first of all, it's obviously quite warm at the moment. If you have been out there enjoying the lovely sunshine, that's fantastic. The medium range forecast for the next week or two suggests that the high pressure that's currently sitting over the UK will actually push the recent storms out of the way. They've been pretty ferocious around various parts of the country. We had big floods just a mile or so away from where I'm sitting, and we hardly had a spot of rain here, so they're very localised. We'll bring in a slightly cooler air towards the end of the week, less humid, which will be good, and again the storms will go away. But by the weekend it looks like Wales, the northeast of England and western Scotland will get a few showers, but elsewhere temperatures are likely to stay in the high 20s, lots of sun, plenty of dry weather right through the weekend, and likely temperatures will drop back to something nearer normal and showers will develop over much of the UK next week. Now, one more point. Be careful if you have to cross a flooded road. We've had lots of videos of car drivers wending their way through and occasionally drowning their vehicles by trying to cross floods. The main thing on motorcycle, of course, is you never know what's under the surface. It could be a pothole, quite likely, with the state of the roads today, but it could be mud or gravel that's been washed into the road as well. And if the water is flowing, such as when you're trying to cross a stream, I wouldn't even attempt to cross it, but I would find an alternative route. Now, one of the bike magazines had an article a few years back written by an overlander who claimed it was perfectly safe, but vehicles, including riders on bikes, do get washed away. Current in even shallow water can be surprisingly strong. It only needs water running at a bit of a clip to be ankle deep, and it can wash you off your feet, so it can certainly wash the tyres out from under a bike. So anyway, on with the news. So what have I got for you today then? Well, first piece of news is that strikes by members of the Public and Commercial Services Union, that's the PCS, will affect driving tests later this month. Now, the strike action will affect driving test centres in different parts of Great Britain at different times. The dates and areas affected are as follows. Thursday 15th of June, Friday 16th of June and Monday the 19th of June. In other words, this coming tomorrow and over the round the weekend. It will be London, South East England, South West England and Wales. And then the second batch of strikes, which will be next week, are Thursday the 22nd, Friday the 23rd. And they will affect Scotland, North East England, North West England, Yorkshire and the Humber, the East Midlands, the West Midlands, the East of England and parts of London. Now, not all tests will be cancelled, as not all examiners are members of the PCS union. And of course some may choose not to go on strike, and the DVSA say that unless you cancel your test you should go to your driving test appointment as planned, unless you are specifically told by the DVSA not to go. Now here's the tricky bit. If you want to change your test to another date, that's possible so long as you give 3 clear working days notice. I only picked up this story yesterday. Unfortunately, if you do cancel, then you'll have to pay again if you don't give that 3 clear working days notice. Now, if the DVSA cancel your test and you booked it yourself, the DVSA will automatically rebook for you and you'll be sent new details within 5 to 10 working days. You don't need to contact the DVSA and you will be able to claim out-of-pocket expenses. So presumably if you turn up and you've paid your driving instructor for the trip, then you'll get your money back on that one. However, for motorcycle candidates, most of who will be booking their tests through the training school, the DVSA will refund the trainer, but the trainer then has to go ahead and rebook each test themselves. They don't get an automatic rebooking. Now, given the constant complaints over the difficulty of using the trainer booking system, I bet that will go down a bundle with motorcycle training schools. The strike action itself is part of a national industrial action by the PCS union over pay, pensions, job and redundancy terms. Now, in another story, a teenager has been arrested on the suspicion of causing serious injury by dangerous driving. The rider has been released on bail. The incident refers to a crash that happened in southeast London mid-afternoon on the 11th of May, and I reported on it in this show. The police recently released CCTV footage of a motorcyclist that they described as a reckless rider, and what happened was that he was involved in a collision with a woman, a 29-year-old woman, and an 18-month-old baby who was in a pushchair. They were both injured in a collision with the bike in Eltham in Kent. Now the baby sadly remains in hospital with life-changing injuries 1 month after the collision. So obviously riders they're attempting to make the link with the teenager who's been arrested. Now, sadly, the veteran Hollywood actor Treat Williams has been killed in a motorcycle crash in Vermont at the age of 71. Williams, who most recently appeared in the US television series Everwood, suffered critical injuries after a car collided with his motorcycle. Police said he was thrown from the bike on Monday after being hit by an SUV turning left into a car park. The actor enjoyed a career spanning 50 years. He appeared as a hippie leader George Berger in the 1979 movie version of the musical Hair, for which role he was nominated for a Golden Globe. He was perhaps best known, though, for his starring role from 2002 to 2006 as Dr. Andrew Brown, a widowed brain surgeon from Manhattan who moves with his 2 children to the Colorado mountain town called Everwood. So, sad story there. Now, the latest way to get your motorcycle from one location to another is by air, responding to a growing demand from riders who want to take their bikes with them to distant destinations without having to ride there, obviously. WestJet Cargo has launched an innovative motorcycle transportation service. Here it is. Basically, the service runs from April to October. It's available both on domestic and international flights, so long as they connect Canada to the US and other locations in Europe. Now, right now, the Canadian airline has 4 drop-off locations in Canada: Calgary, Halifax, Toronto and Vancouver, where owners can deposit their bikes. It's then put on the crate by the look of it, and it's then shipped to a bunch of destinations which include Miami, Los Angeles, Barcelona, Dublin, Edinburgh, Paris, Rome, London, Gatwick and Heathrow. And owners then simply turn up, collect their bike at the destination, enjoy their biking holiday, then return it to any city that is part of the Bike Air program. Now, to help promote the service, the Canadian airline teamed up with a Canadian photographer called David Goldman, and he photographs individuals connected to motorcycles, and he's been appointed a WestJet ambassador for the service. So that's his 2019 790 KTM adventure, being flown from Halifax to Dublin earlier this month. Kristen De Bruyne WestJet Cargo's Executive Vice President said WestJet Cargo recognises the potential of motorcycle tourism and is determined to support its growth and culture by making it even more accessible and appealing to riders. Right, no word on the price, however, and it's not clear yet whether the service will carry bikes in the reverse direction yet. For example, what I mean here is whether you could load up your bike first in the UK, fly to Canada, and then come back to the UK, or indeed whether riders can actually get their machines flown from locations that they list as destinations but obviously aren't in Canada. And presumably the rider won't be able to travel with the bike either, but will have to take a commercial passenger flight. Right, so on with some motorcycle industry news now. Last time out, I was talking about Airliv, the Swedish automotive safety supplier, which provides airbag technology to many leading car manufacturers, and about how they expect their first product to reach the motorcycle market in 2025, which would be a bag on the bike airbag. Now, no more details about that, but what I can tell you is that Honda have been looking at motorcycle airbag systems for decades. As far as I recall, they had a fully experimental system attached to a Goldwing back in the 1980s, and they actually brought out the Goldwing as the first bike coming to market with an airbag back in 2005. Now, as far as I know, the 2023 model Goldwing remains the only motorcycle which can have an airbag built into it. Now, back in 2020, and as reported in ELEVENSES, they actually patented a new fixed airbag system which mounted ahead of the rider and would inflate. I seem to have missed the picture for that one, but never mind. It would pop up and inflate directly ahead of the rider, provide a sort of an impact zone in the event of the bike hitting something, but it remains attached to the airbag. Now, what Terry kindly showed me is a new system that is Honda are talking about, and this is it. It's actually a detachable airbag which fires from the back of the tank and then envelops the rider in its embrace, and you can see how this works in the picture then. But the bag doesn't just pop up and stay there, it actually comes away with the rider. So if the rider then falls from the machine, they are still protected by the airbag. If they're projected over the top of the car, they still have the airbag wrapped around their torso. Now, whether or not the system can be made practical to be mounted on a range of different machines is a good question. There's the obvious question I would ask is how that you would get a one-size-fits-all airbag like this to match with a range of motorcyclists of different shapes and sizes. And the other question is, of course, that airbags deploy with quite a lot of force, and if it's going to wrap itself around you, it's going to have to be very, very carefully constructed so it doesn't actually propel the rider backwards off the bike as it inflates, unless that is the plan of the airbag, is in fact to try to reduce the velocity, as it were, of the rider themselves if they impact something like a car. But the other question, of course, is that the location that the airbag is fired from will undoubtedly catch some riders' attention. Now, a female friend of mine was unfortunate enough years ago to be resting her feet on the dashboard of the car in which she was the passenger when it was involved in a collision and the airbag went off. She suffered extensive and very painful friction burns and bruising to parts I won't name, and you can see the potential concern for the rider sitting there. Now, intriguingly, the bike shown in the patent drawing appears to be a VTR 250, the baby Honda V-twin, last seen in the Japanese manufacturer's UK range way back in the late 1980s, although it does appear to have been in production as late as 2018 for the Asian market. Right, okay, so don't forget, you can catch these shows every Wednesday and Sunday at 11. They usually go out live. Very occasionally I do a recorded show when I have other commitments, and even more rarely I miss a show. So if you want to catch up with them all, they are live on Facebook, they are live on YouTube. You can find the recordings on Facebook, but it's a lot easier to head to my YouTube channel, Survival Skills UK, and follow them over there if you've missed one. Much easier because you can follow them in their own playlist on my YouTube channel there. Right, so what's next then? Well, Honda, I've just got a comment there, let's just read that. That was Terry. It says, ironic that the country that gave us the kamikaze also gave us this life-saving device. Yes, interesting, of course, for you to come up with a comment like that, Terry. I'm not entirely surprised. Right, okay. Triumph. So they have some stunning summer offers here in the UK right now, which means they say there's no better time to buy your next Triumph. Now, with inflation hitting everything we buy, which I happen to notice as a complete aside, nothing to do with motorcycling, a Tory finance minister claimed that their goal was to get inflation down so that consumers would see prices falling. Anybody who knows anything about inflation should be able to work out that if the rate of inflation falls, it doesn't mean prices fall. What it means is they simply go up less fast. But hey ho, that's the state of our economics at the moment. Anyway, back to the story. Yes, with inflation hitting everything we buy, Triumph claim that they are offering competitive finance offers, and that will probably appeal to some riders who might be a bit short of cash. The question is whether the rate of 8.9 APR at representative is the best you can find. That's another matter altogether. Now, it does actually match the rates that Honda appear to be offering over their entire range. And it didn't take me very long to find that there has been a Suzuki Spring offer, which is offering lower rates from just 2.9% APR, in fact, representative for the GSX or S1000, the GSX S1000 GT, the GSX S1000 GT Plus, and the V-Strom 1050 and the V-Strom 1050DE. Now also available on a 4.9% deal are the V-Strom 650, the V-Strom 650 XT, the SV650 and the SV650X. You also get 2 free year service plan on that and a £500 off if you book it via a test ride first. Now those Suzuki offers do expire at the end of this month. So it's probably why Triumph are actually trying to sweeten their 8.9% deal with what they call free silver expedition panniers for their Tiger 1200 Rally Pro and Rally Explorer, whilst the Trident 660 and Tiger Sport 660 they get a £250 clothing and accessories voucher for the moment. I don't know how long those deals will survive. Now, Harley-Davidson, news about Harley, they've been forced to throttle back their motorcycle manufacturing at their York facility, because the company apparently recently notified of a potential quality issue to brake hose assemblies. Now these are apparently made by a new supplier called Proterial Cable America, and they are bought in by another company which remains unnamed in the statement, and this unnamed company is the one that actually assembles the bits and pieces into brake systems which are then supplied to Harley to bolt to their bikes. Now Proterial Cable America, they manufacture a range of equipment, medical and communications hardware apparently, as well as the automotive parts such as brake hoses and also wiring harnesses. Now based on the latest information provided by PCA, the company plans on resuming full motorcycle operations soon, and that should mean Harley will be back in action at their York facility by June the 26th. There's around 1,000 people employed there, by the way. Harley says it won't affect their international production at plants in Brazil, India and Thailand, not meaningfully anyway. Presumably they have stocks already either in shipment or out there. Jochen Zeitz, the chairman, president and CEO of Harley-Davidson, he said, quote, "While retail sales have improved in the quarter as we had expected, we have a strong inventory position in the network to help us navigate through this situation. The teams are working very hard to minimise the impact on business." And that's the problem, of course, with maintaining a supply system which is sort of straight in the door and straight onto the machine, low inventory. Okay, so what else have we got to talk about today? Well, popping in through my email box have been a whole raft of press releases from Oxford. Usually happens about this time of year as they gear up their sales. But these are about their relaunched and redesigned jackets. So what have I been seeing? Well, here's the first of three which popped through my letterbox. This is the Oxford Metro 2. Now this is a jacket which is claimed to offer year-round functionality due to its waterproof drop liner construction, a removable thermal liner and impressive ventilation for a package capable of tackling cold, wet commutes and on-road adventure riding. And they say that the construction is from a high-density 600 denier polyester outer shell with a more durable ripstop fabric at the elbows to increase abrasion and tear resistance. Although I have to ask why it is that the yellow and black high-vis jacket has the high-vis yellow colour on the inside of the sleeves where it can't be seen. It's essentially useless. Maybe they simply can't get the ripstop material in high-vis. However, and perhaps not surprisingly, given the modest £129 price point, the protection level only comes up as an A-rated garment. And although, as I said in the past, it may only have been submitted as an A-rated garment, and it may actually perform better than the rating, it would be surprising if it hadn't been tested for a higher standard. Anyway, hey ho, it's only fitted with CE level 1 shoulder and elbow protectors too. There is a back protector pocket, but the necessary pad isn't fitted. You'll have to buy one of those separately. So, okay, moving on. I also received word of this jacket, the similarly priced Dakota 3.0. Now, this jacket has apparently been completely redesigned from the ground up, and to say that it gives it improved fit, venting and styling for a waterproof jacket perfectly at ease commuting or touring, whatever the weather. But once again, the redesign didn't go as far as upgrading the quality of the material. For the second time, the jacket is only CEA rated. It's fitted with CE level 1 shoulder and elbow protectors, and once more is minus a protector in the back protector pocket. So, you know, it's back to the question I've asked a number of times, with A-rated garments performing pretty poorly in real-world abrasion tests, such as those carried out by the MotoCap program Down Under. Is a garment with a single A rating actually fit for all-round riding, as the advertising implies? Okay, £130 isn't much to pay for a jacket, so maybe I am expecting too much. So what about the more expensive Oxford Mondial? Now, this is described as a best-selling and extremely lightweight, durable and waterproof laminate jacket, and it's said to have been brought back with a host of improvements, including increased adjustability and more wearer-friendly ease of use. Which there are a lot of features on the jacket. It includes removable thermal liner, a neoprene collar, an adjustable press studs, and a bunch of pockets that you can fill up with junk. But you will pay £299 for this functionality. But here's the crucial bit, really. Protection, according to the press release, has received a spec bump in the shape of upgraded CE level 2 protectors in the shoulders and elbows. Formed from a soft, flexible polymer that conforms to the wearer's individual body shape, these protectors harden upon impact with high shock-absorbing properties. So basically, the latest latest in the body armour, which is good. But how does the jacket itself, which contains the body armour, how does that fare in CE testing? Well, once again, it's only CE certified. And whilst it does have the higher performing level 2 CE shoulder and elbow protectors, there's no word on whether they are the smaller type 1 or the larger type 2 protectors. And once again, the Mondial lacks a back protector, and you'll have to add your own to the jacket. So really, the question is this too much to pay for an A rated jacket? Well, I think so, really. There aren't many AAA rated fabric jackets around, but it didn't take me more than a few seconds to track down a competitor jacket. It's not so pretty to look at in the photo. Here it is. This is the GTS Urban Pro waterproof textile motorcycle jacket. Do I say Pro? I said it should be Urban Evo, and it too gets CE approved protection in the shoulders and elbows, presumably level 1 and level 2. It also misses out on a back protector, although there is the pocket there, of course. But the material itself, the fabric of the jacket, means that it gets an AA rating, and it costs just £150, so 20 odd quid more expensive than the basic Oxfords, and quite a lot cheaper than the more expensive one we've just seen. Alright, so we've got a comment to look at. Terry says, just waiting on fine day here to test ride the new V-Strom 250 SX, which has just arrived at a very reasonable, he says, £6,999, which is £3,419. I'm not sure much. I don't think we get it here, actually. I'll have to double check, but I don't think that, Suzuki do much in the way of motorcycles these days in the UK. I'd be interested in your impressions, actually, Terry. Nice little 250 like that could be an interesting bike for younger riders. Anyway, on with the final item for today. This is an in-depth look, which I've entitled "From MotoGP Champions to €1 Sell-Offs: The Troubled History of MV Agusta." So a rather different bike to your VT 250 there. Not VT, the V-Strom 250. Right, so MV have been involved, as in recent weeks, as I've mentioned in my show, with the KTM brand. What's happened is KTM have invested apparently in MV by buying shares, and MV have in turn shut down their own bespoke showrooms and their spares distribution network, and KTM now handle the sales and servicing of MVs through their existing dealer network, 180 odd dealerships apparently, and the servicing and the spares are also handled by KTM. Now, not surprisingly, since KTM have a bit of a history of buying up struggling European manufacturers, we could put Husaberg and Husqvarna in that bracket. There are plenty of bets on the Austrian company gaining full control of MV Agusta in the not too distant future, and stories have in fact surfaced that KTM do have plans to acquire a majority stake in the company in months rather than years. But MV's Russian CEO, Timur Sardarov, and now he has responded to this speculation and said that KTM aren't taking over and MV would remain headquartered in Italy. He explained that funding from the Austrian motorcycle giant would go a long way to helping MV Agusta achieve both its short and long-term goals, not least helping upgrade its factory in Shirana near Lake Varese, and that the improvement of the facilities would result in new models. And he said, quote, "The future of MV has never been brighter and has many exciting times in store for us. The company is working on the development of new models which, depending on the situation of the respective markets, will see the light of day in the months and years to come." Now, he went on to explain that funding from the Austrian company would help MV achieve long and short-term goals, the improvement of the facilities would result in those increased production, and MV do plan, according to this scheme, to sell 15,000 motorcycles a year, and they believe that figure is achievable with KTM's investment. Now, MV will also be apparently able to build a museum that'll highlight the brand's heritage but showcase their new bikes too, but the main objective remains growing the MV Agusta brand in volume terms. Now we'll see. The truth is that following the Russian takeover, MV's performance has been less than startling. 2022's global sales barely exceeded 3,000 units. That's a tiny number on the global stage, even for a manufacturer aiming at the high end of the market. Now, to put that into perspective, Triumph sold around 83,000 bikes last year. The recent ownership of many European manufacturers has been a complex business, and the history of MV Agusta is no exception. They were founded by Count Domenico Agusta on the 19th of January 1945 in order to diversify away from aircraft production after the war actually ended in Italy. The company initially focused on small CC motorcycles, but Count Agusta had a passion for racing, and it wasn't long before the company launched its own factory racing program. The first victory actually came in 1946, so you can see how quickly they made a start in racing. And of course, the history and the success of MV at World Racing International events is legendary. That bike there is the 3-cylinder MV, the triple Grand Prix bike. The family-owned company carried on racing and developed, in fact, the first across-the-frame 4-cylinder engine for GP racing, and that led to a period of dominance in GPs. Now, Count Agusta died in 1971, and that was the beginning of a slow decline, and eventually the company was purchased by the Castiglione family's firm Cagiva in 1991. But it wasn't long before Cagiva themselves began facing monetary problems, and 65% of MV was sold to the Malaysian car manufacturer Proton for €70 million. Just 1 year later, Proton sold their holding to an Italian financial company for €1. Are you following this? Because it gets more complicated. In 2008, in one of the most bizarre deals I can think of, Harley Davidson, who are not exactly known for their performance motorcycles, they acquired the MV Agusta group for $100 million US. They invested around €40 million, which went into debt payoff, production upgrades, and new model launches, including the then brand new 3-cylinder F3. But with their own financial woes, Harley Davidson duly offloaded MV Agusta, and this time it was the Castiglione family who were able to repurchase this new MV Agusta for just €1. Now, with new models being released, sales did at this point climb. They reached 10,000 bikes per year, but MV inevitably, it seems, ran into debt trouble again. And this time it was Mercedes-AMG who in 2015 they acquired 25% of MV. But the investment that MV Agusta were expecting to come in from Mercedes never actually materialized, and yes, you've guessed, 1 year later Mercedes offloaded MV, and this time the company was picked up by a UK Russian investment fund. They then sold it just a year later to the Russian family, of whom Timur Sardarov is the representative, in 2019. They came in with some fairly ambitious restructuring plans. Now, at the time, the sales of MVs were at the lowest in 20 years, but even allowing for the pandemic, it has to be said that the sales of the high-tech and premium price bike products like this 1000cc 4-cylinder Brutale have remained disappointing. And that brings us to the current situation where the KTM Group have acquired 25% of MV Agusta, taking control of the sales and servicing aspects of the company. Now, not surprisingly, as I said, due to KTM's history of buying up European manufacturers, there are plenty of bets on the Austrian company actually gaining a majority shareholding or even full control. And indeed, stories have surfaced on the internet already that this is indeed what KTM are planning to do. And now, even with the 25% investment from KTM, it's frankly hard to see how MV can invest in new machinery, new bikes, continue to grow at the sort of planned rate. I can't see that happening, frankly. All the time they are targeting a very small niche market. And it's going to be difficult, frankly, I would say, for them to retain any unique identity if they continue to want to go it alone. So what will happen? Anybody's guess, but basically it could well be that we'll see the MV Agusta midget swallowed by the KTM giant in the not too distant future. What's Terry got to say? He says, from a Russian CEO's point of view, KTM's share buy might represent a special financial exercise and not a full-blown takeover. Yeah, okay, Terry. Right, thank you very much again for your insights there. That is it for today's show. Don't forget to look back in on Sunday for the next one. I'm not sure what I've got on the menu. I know that I will be looking at some figures for bike crashes. I'll be looking at a Warwickshire programme of putting signs up on what they call high risk routes for motorcyclists, and I will be asking if that has any connection with the science, because I just happen to have access to a launch of a new crash map which gives us data on where all the accidents that are reported to the police and investigated by the police actually happen. So we do have some hard data, and I'll be looking at the question of whether or not putting signs up actually goes up on the right kind of roads. Right, so thank you all once more for looking in today. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Do spread the word, share and like, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. That all helps other people know that the show is here, and so get the word spread around and tell people whether you've found a particular item interesting. It's always good to know. Feedback to me is also always appreciated. So thanks again for looking in. If you are out there today on what is yet another gorgeously clear day here in London, do stay shiny side up.